Hello, hello. Welcome into the Facebook advertising class. My name is Jeff Bittner. This is the After the License channel where I try and help real estate agents build their business. I've been doing a marketing mastermind every Tuesday and Thursday, and in that mastermind, I've had a number of agents ask me about Facebook advertising. So I figured, why don't I just jump on and teach the basics of how do you run a Facebook ad if you're in real estate? Okay. Now, I'm going to try and go basics. So talk about kind of each button and how we get there and what's important about it. Okay, I think I'm back. Here we go. So sorry about that. So ultimately, I want to kind of go through this pretty slow, and we might end up being part one of 2 or 3 parts, depending on kind of how long this takes. If you guys have questions for me along the way, please don't hesitate to drop a comment in the YouTube live stream. Even if you're watching this after the fact, I'm going to go back and look at those and comment and respond so that we can figure out what is needed for future sessions. Okay, so the basics of Facebook advertising. Let's just talk about why we might want to do advertising on Facebook, right? First and foremost, Facebook is one of the most used websites across the globe. For most of us, right, we use Facebook every week, every day, and sometimes we're checking it multiple times a day. So there's power in being able to put your name, your brand, your business on Facebook so that the world can see it, right? The second piece, and what's really powerful for real estate agents, is there's a lead generation aspect to Facebook advertising that can become really powerful. There are agents and companies, and myself included, who are generating leads on Facebook for less than $10 a lead, right? In some cases, $5, $6 a lead. And I've seen in extreme cases, a couple dollars a lead. So if you get good at this, you can have success generating leads and making your brand known on Facebook. Okay, so that's really the why, right? Making your brand known on Facebook can not only let you generate leads, but also lead to more brand recognition and things like that. So, what do we need to get started? First and foremost, you need a Facebook business page to run Facebook ads. So that really is the first step. Anyone who asks me about Facebook and they say, should I do a personal page or should I do a business page or both? I always recommend at the very least you have a Facebook business page set up, even if you don't use it a ton, because without it, you cannot run Facebook ads. So you need a Facebook business page. We're not going to talk about that in this session. It's pretty easy. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there. If you just Google how to create a Facebook business page, it's pretty simple, okay? And you just need something that represents you, represents your brand, whatever you go by. If you're Jeff the Real Estate Agent, create a business page that says Jeff the Real Estate Agent. If you go by a team name or a brand, include that in the business page, okay? From there, once you have your business page set up, you're going to navigate over to the Ads Manager. Now, there's a couple ways to do this. If you log on to facebook.com. On the left-hand side, you'll see a button very similar to this. Now I'm in the Facebook business section that says Ads Manager. On the left-hand side, if you click that, you'll be taken to the Ads Manager. The other way to do it is by going to business.facebook.com. So if you're looking at my screen right now, business.facebook.com. And it'll take you to a screen that looks something like this. And then you can go over here to the left-hand side and click Ads Manager, okay? So that's where we're gonna start creating our first campaign, is from within the Ads Manager section, So I just clicked Ads Manager from, again, business.facebook.com, and we're going to let this load. Now, give this a second here. Once we get in Ads Manager, there's a couple things we just want to kind of be on the lookout for. In the middle of Ads Manager, we're going to see any current campaigns we have running. Okay, so this is my Ads Manager. You see the Campaigns tab, you see an Ad Sets tab, and you see an Ads tab. These are all the components to a Facebook campaign. So we'll touch on these more, but ultimately when you create a campaign, you're creating a campaign that contains a few different ad sets, and those ad sets all contain one or more ads. Okay, so for our first campaign, we're really just going to create one campaign that has one ad set, that has one ad. But it's important just to kind of know those different parts of the ad when you're looking at Ads Manager. So I always tell people, if you're here and you're getting confused and it doesn't look the same, make sure you're on the right tab, right? So if I come in here and I click edit on one of these campaigns I've already created, right? I'm going to be editing a campaign, but I can jump over to ad sets and I can edit the ad sets, or I can come over here to the ads tab and edit the ads. Okay. The other thing that's really confusing, in my opinion, about the Facebook Ads Manager is there's several different, I'll just say, entities in some cases that you can create ads under. So if I click this thing here, I've got a couple different ad accounts created. And so you can ultimately create ads for multiple of those different kind of ad accounts. So whatever you're in, just naturally after you click Ads Manager, this should work until you get more advanced and you want to organize things differently. But ultimately, whatever kind of the default is after you hit Ads Manager, this should work fine. But just take note of what it says up here. Mine says my name. This is like a personal ad account, but then there's other ads accounts that I've created just to kind of keep myself more organized. But again, that's more of a 202, a 303 type thing. Today, we're just really trying to go over the basics. Okay, so we've talked about Facebook business. We talked about getting to the Ads Manager, and we talked about kind of some of the basics, campaigns, ad sets, and ads. We'll talk about that more here in a second. But ultimately, when we go to create our first campaign, hit the big green create button, okay? Big green create button. And we're going to start our first campaign. And this might take a second to load here. That's normal. And what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and walk through everything we see on the screen and kind of talk through what you should be thinking about and how it's going to affect your ad and how it's going to affect your campaign and all of that fun stuff. So the first thing you have to do when you create a new campaign is you have to create or choose a campaign objective, okay? So choose a campaign objective. There's a couple different columns here. We have kind of awareness, we have consideration, and we have conversion. A good way to think of your campaign objective is, what are you trying to accomplish? Okay, and so I'll give you a few different examples, and you can, if you hover over these, it'll actually give you some more insight here. Okay, but let me just talk about the examples first, right? So you might be running a Facebook ad to get more eyeballs on a Facebook post that you just did. Maybe you have a new listing or a listing that's upcoming, right? And you want to promote it and you want to get more eyeballs on it, right? You could do a campaign that increases the reach of that post, okay? Maybe you have a new video that you just posted. You, again, maybe just got a new listing and you shot a nice video touring the home. You want more balls on that video. There's a campaign objective called video views, okay? And so there's a lot of these different objectives, right? Brand awareness, reach, traffic. So traffic is actually if you want to take people from Facebook and drive that traffic to your other website. So a lot of instances with agents, we have other real estate related websites that we're hoping to drive traffic to. In that case, you would choose the campaign objective traffic because we're trying to drive traffic to another website. So if we hover over the I for information, it says send people to a destination like a website, app, Facebook event, or messenger conversation. Okay. The other one I want to draw attention to is lead generation, because one of the more powerful parts about Facebook advertising, as we talked about earlier, is the ability to generate leads, and that's through a lead generation ad. So we're not going to be able to get into the weeds on this today, but that'll definitely be a part 2 or part 3, because this specific type of campaign, and a lot of what we talk about here today is going to be applicable to that, but the actual ad creation itself is a tad bit more complex. Okay, but keep that in mind. If you really want to generate leads at a low cost, the lead generation campaigns seem to be really effective from what I've seen. So for this example here today, I'm going to do video views, okay? So I'm going to select the video views objective, and that is going to have an impact on what type of ad I can create, right? And what that ad actually looks like when we get to that section, okay? This example, I think it's kind of the easiest to kind of wrap our heads around. I have some videos kind of preloaded, already posted to Facebook that I'll be able to kind of use as an example. Okay, so I've selected video views. You can change this, right? So as we're navigating through our campaign, I can come in here and I can adjust this later if I want to. So the next step here is coming up with a name for our campaign, and we can even go a step further and name our ad set and actually name our ad. Just know that whatever you name these things, they are internal. They're internal to you. And so that's important to understand. The public's not going to see it. You know, other people who are browsing Facebook aren't going to see it. Only you are going to see these things. So, you know, you don't have to make this like a marketing forward message. I would recommend putting a name that makes sense to you, something that's can keep you organized. And if you go and see that campaign later, and I'm not talking about like tomorrow later or next week later, but 6 months from now, you know what that campaign was for. What was its purpose? What were you trying to accomplish? Okay. Take it from someone who's run a lot of Facebook ads. If you have a bunch of campaigns that are named campaign 1, campaign 2, campaign 3, you have no idea what those actually are or what you were trying to do later on if you go and see those things. Okay. So in this case, I might actually put the description of what I'm trying to accomplish in my campaign, right? So getting more video views for my listing. Okay. And I have a lot of campaigns that are named similar things to that, right? Where it's just, I'm really almost putting the description of what I'm trying to do in the campaign name. You can, if you want to take your organization to another level, you can do like hyphens and say, you know, targeting Arizona residents, or maybe you're targeting a specific town or a specific zip code or a city. Again, we'll talk about that here in a second, the specifics of that, but you can actually put things like that in the campaign. Okay. So we can also in this step name our ad set and our ad. I think I'm going to wait. And as we kind of approach those things, we can name them then as well. And I think it'll make more sense what the purpose of an ad set is once we get to actually setting that up. Okay. So for right now, I'm just going to name my campaign and I'm going to hit continue here. I just want to make sure we don't have any other questions or anything while this thing loads. Awesome. Thank you so much for the comments. Guys, if you're watching right now, just drop a comment on where you're watching from. Make sure we can see those things. Awesome. Let me just... One second, guys. Okay. So, sorry, my phone's ringing here. Okay, there we go. So we've got our campaign name, and now we're going to start working through creating our actual campaign. Okay, so this is the name we came up with, getting more views video views for my listing, targeting Arizona residents. Okay. So let's start to work through this. Now, if you're in real estate, or if you're in another one of what they call these special ad categories, right off the bat, we have something important we need to talk about. And that is you are running for what Facebook calls a special ad category. Here it says you're required to declare if your ads are related to credit, employment, housing, social issues, elections, or politics. Okay. And the basics of this, for real estate at least, right, is in real estate, we all have to abide by fair housing policies. And so because Facebook has some really personal information about everybody, we have to declare that we are in the housing sector, and therefore Facebook's going to force us to abide by those fair housing laws. So previously, until this rule was enacted maybe a year or so ago, you could actually get really drilled down with some of your targeting. And since some rules came out, we now have to declare we're in the housing sector, and it's actually going to limit who we can target to. That being said, the Facebook ad itself can still be really successful. Okay, so if you're doing this for real estate, which we are, we're going to come in here and we're going to click this box. Now, if you think you can come and get away with not checking it, just know that Facebook's got a lot of things in place to kind of check and double check your work. And a lot of instances, your ad won't actually ever get off the ground unless you properly label it, right? Even if you check no on this and you try and run an ad, it's got enough AI, people double checking and triple checking things that your ad most likely will not run. So I encourage everyone to follow the rules, hit special ad category, and then come in here and select housing, okay? And we're going to talk about how this affects who we can actually target in a second, but it's important to kind of declare that from the onset. Okay, so let's scroll down. Now we're going into campaign details. So some of this stuff we can't change, but let's just click on it just in case. So right now our campaign details, we're doing an auction campaign. That's, from my knowledge, pretty much every type of campaign. Anytime you do advertising, you're bidding against other advertisers. So we can hit edit here, but there's nothing that we can actually change this to. Our campaign objective, right? We already selected this, video views. We can, just in this very first step, already decide to change this if we choose to, but we're not going to for this example. And then the last option here is campaign spending limit. Okay, so this is optional. This is set an overall spending limit for your ad campaign. This means your ad sets in the campaign will stop once you've reached a certain spending limit. So I would encourage you to do this. I also have some tricks and tips for making sure you don't spend too much money, but we'll talk about that here in the budgeting section. But if you wanted to come in here and say, you know what, I only want to spend $50, you can come back and change this later on if you need to. Oh, and it's actually already given me campaign spending limit too low. The campaign spending limit must be at least $100 for this currency. So at the very least, you got to be willing to spend $100, but you can limit that significantly by changing your daily budget, which again, we'll talk about here in a little bit. So choose to add a campaign spending limit or not. In this case, I'm not going to, and I'll teach you kind of my tip and trick for making sure my ads don't spend too much, okay? The next section here talks about A/B testing. It says test campaigns, ad sets, and ads against each other to understand which strategies give you the best result. This is important with any type of advertising. You want to be able to test and see what's working and what's not. But in this case, I'm not going to have that enabled here today, okay? The last section here is campaign budget optimization, okay? So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to hit, so campaign budget optimization will distribute your budget across ad sets and get more results depending on your delivery optimization choices and bid strategy. You can control spending on each ad set. So I normally leave this off, but if someone's got some other advice there, please let me know. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to hit next. We're going to let this load here. Okay. Now we're into the ad set. So with our campaign, and we talked about kind of naming the campaign, and we just went through all of the settings for the campaign. So nothing crazy there, right? And we named it getting more video view listings, targeting Arizona residents. So ad set is the next kind of step in the campaign creation process, right? We talked about ad sets live within campaigns. And this is true if you're doing Facebook ads or Google ads. Pretty much any online advertising kind of has this set up: campaign, ad set, ads. And so what we're doing with the ad set is we are, within our campaign, defining a target audience that we want to reach out to that can have multiple ad sets within one campaign. So let me just give you an example. Our campaign, we're saying getting more video views for my listing, targeting Arizona residents. As an example, we can have one ad set targeting people in Phoenix and another ad set targeting people in Tucson, right? Those could be two different ad sets. They have two different sets of people that we're targeting. And so we might name this targeting people in Phoenix. Okay. So just name your ad set who you're targeting. That way, if you create multiple ad sets within the same campaign, you know what the purpose, right? You're targeting a, make sure that that's known in the ad set name. Okay. So I'm just going to name that targeting people in Phoenix, and we're going to continue to move on. So dynamic creative, again, provide elements such as images and headlines, and will automatically combinations optimized for your audience. This is the thing where if you want to just provide like logos and certain photos, Facebook will kind of mash together an ad for you. I've tested this a little bit, but I prefer to kind of create my own ad and upload it and see how it does, and then change to see if it's not working. So I typically turn this off. We could probably do a separate class just on dynamic creative in the future if you're interested in it. Okay. So let's continue to scroll down. Okay. Now we're going to talk about budgeting, right? So we talked about this in the beginning a little bit under the campaign settings. Do we want to have a limit for our campaign? And in that section, I opted and then said no, right? Because we can actually do some stuff here in the budgeting section to make sure we don't spend too much money, right? And so this is where we get to make those decisions. Under budget, we have the option for a daily budget or a lifetime budget. Okay, there's pros and cons to both. One of the pros of a lifetime budget is you can do some more advanced things with the scheduling. Again, probably more of a 202 or a 303 class. We won't touch too much on that. I typically do daily budget, okay? And here is where you get to decide how much do you want to spend. Just know that you can spend a fairly small amount of money and you can spend a ton of money depending on what you prefer, right? And it says, actually with just $20 in here by default, it says you've set a daily budget that is significantly greater than the average on this account, $2. If this is unintentional, please ignore this warning. So it's actually telling me, you typically spend $2 a day. Do you really want to spend 20, right? So it's actually got some warnings in there, but that's where you get to decide. I always tell people start with something small. Now, you're going to want a budget that's high enough where you're going to actually get views and get clicks and or generate leads. Sometimes what happens if we set our budget too small, right? Like 50 cents a day isn't going to get us anywhere on Facebook. And so Facebook might just not show our ad if we have too small of a budget, but you can always adjust it as you go. So if you set it for $1 a day, in 2 days runs and you're not getting very much traction, you can up it to $2 or $3 or $5, right? The other thing you can do is if things are going well, you can up that budget. So start small and then kind of work your way up. But you're going to want to have some kind of budget in there where you actually are going to see some results. So I always recommend $5 a day. It's kind of a good starting point. You actually have the option, if you're doing like a lead generation ad, to generate leads at that price point, depending on how well your ad's set up. If you're going to do a video views ad, you'll get a good amount of video views. You'll actually be able to see kind of what your ad is doing. But again, whatever you set this to, you can adjust it. The next part in here is start date. So when is this ad going to start? Most cases, I start it today. If I'm launching the ad today, I want it to start as soon as possible. So by default, it's going to say January 13th, 11:14 a.m., which, okay, that works. That's about what time it is. Let me just double check, right? So it's about 10 minutes behind, but that'll work, okay? We can set this to start tomorrow or start the weekend or start next week if we choose to. We just come in here and we click and we can select, like if I wanted to start on Monday, I would select the 18th and pick a time, okay? Okay. Next, this is a really important piece here, and that is this set an end date. Okay, set an end date. This is one mistake that I have made that I've seen other people make. And if you don't have that campaign budget set, right? So if you're not actually in that campaign level, if you didn't set it to say, hey, I only want to spend $100 or $200, whatever it looks like, you're going to want to make sure you have an end date. And the reason why is if you don't have an end date, and you don't have a campaign max budget, then you can end up spending $5 a day for seemingly forever, okay? So take it from someone who's accidentally started an ad, forgot to put an end date and let the thing run, only to find that in 30 days, right, I had $150 that I spent that I didn't even realize what was happening, right? So I always tell people, set an end date. And what I do is when you launch your ad, you're going to want it to run for a couple of days to see what it's doing. And so I always set my end date maybe for 2 or 3 days later. Okay. So today's the 13th. Maybe I set it for the 16th. Okay. That's going to give it 3 to 4. And it's telling me my start date is in the past, which is funny. Because it auto-populated this here. So let's go in here and we'll click this. Let's say I want it to start at 1 p.m. Okay. So I'm going to start it at 1 p.m., which is in a couple hours here. And then I'm putting an end date for January 16th. This is just to ensure that the most I'm spending on this ad is $5 a day. The longest it'll run is a couple days. So maybe I spend $15, $20 max on this ad. I can always come in here and extend this date later on if I choose to. If in a day or two I'm looking at it, the results look good, I feel good about the progress, I can extend this a week or a month, or I can continue to let this go. But at the very least, if I forget about it, I'm only losing $15 or $20 versus letting this thing run on for forever. So make sure you set an end date, okay? And then we'll just look at this real quick. Ad scheduling, the default is run ads all the time. And this is that difference I talked about between the daily budget and the lifetime budget, is if you do a lifetime budget, you can kind of actually pick and choose like what times of day your ad runs. Again, more of a 202, 303 class, but you would change this to lifetime budget, and then you can have some options here under ad scheduling. You can see here, if I hover over this, it says scheduling is only available with lifetime budgets, okay? Okay, let me know if there's any questions. Drop a comment in the comment section if there's any questions on the budgeting and the naming of the ad group. And if not, we will continue to move on. Again, really appreciate you guys all being here. I see we've got a handful of folks watching. So hopefully you're enjoying this. As always, you can leave a comment with any questions you have, even if you're watching the recording, and I'm happy to go back and help answer those. Okay. Okay. So we've got budget, schedule. We talked about naming our ad set. Now we get to the fun part of defining our audience. Now, just to understand that there's a lot of different unique things we can do with this. And again, this is probably going to have to be a separate class in its own on all the different things you can do with audiences. But let's just talk about some of the basics, okay? So audience section, ultimately what we're doing is this is where we define the audience for our ad set, Okay. And we talked about this a little bit when we named it. I said, hey, I want to target people in Phoenix. Okay. And so here is where we actually get to define what that looks like. And it says define who you want to see your ads. Okay. And so if we scroll down, there's a lot of different sections here. Now, a couple of things I just want to touch on is there's a couple different ways you can create audiences. And so if you want to just have your ad be shown to brand new people, that is all on how you define this stuff down here. And again, we'll walk through this step by step. But know that you can come in here and you can create custom audiences. Okay, so if we come in here and I click create new special ad audience or custom audience, I want to show kind of what's possible here, because I think people who haven't played with Facebook ads don't really know what is possible here. But just know that with Facebook, you can create a custom audience of people who have already interacted with your business. And again, this might even be part 2 where we dive into what each one of these means and how you can utilize these. But I want to just show you what's possible here. So this says create a custom audience. You can create a custom audience of people who visit your website. So Facebook has what they call Facebook pixels. And if you've never heard that term before, it's a little piece of code that you can put on your website so that when someone lands on that website, Facebook knows that they're a part of your custom audience. Okay, so pretty powerful stuff. A customer list. I think this is maybe one of the most underutilized pieces in real estate advertising is we all have a database. We all have a sphere of influence. We all have people that know us, like us, and trust us. You can take that list and upload it to Facebook and run ads to those people, right? We've all read books about doing postcards and handwritten notes and phone calls to our database, our sphere of influence. Well, think about how powerful it would be if a couple times a year they logged onto Facebook and they saw your video, right? Or a video of your listing, something along those lines. You can do that by uploading a customer list, putting those folks and making them a custom audience, and then running ads to those people. A few other things just to point out. You can target people who have viewed one of your Facebook videos. So if you've posted Facebook videos in the past, videos of listings, videos of yourself, videos of your team, you can say, and actually let me just click on this so you can see what's possible here. You can say, I want to target anyone who has viewed 3 seconds of my video, 10 seconds of my video, people who have watched 75% or 95% of our video. So a lot of possibilities here, okay? So we've got, let me jump back here, create new custom audience. And again, we'll have to dive into this more in part 2, but just know that there's a lot of power in these custom audiences. People who have viewed your video. If we end up running a lead generation ad, you can target people who interacted with that ad or interacted with that lead form, but didn't actually take action on it. You can target people who have interacted with your Instagram profile, people who have interacted with your events, people who have interacted with your Facebook page. So a lot is possible here with custom audiences. We will make that a part 2 or a part 3, but just know that this is why Facebook advertising is so powerful. It's not necessarily always in the targeting we can do of people that don't know us, but in the targeting of people that already know us and like us and have interacted with our business on some level on Facebook or on Instagram. Because for those of you who don't know, Facebook owns Instagram, okay? So powerful stuff there. We'll talk about custom audiences in a future session. Let's talk about how we target new people that don't already know about us, okay? And that's in this section below here. So this is if we don't do a custom audience, we don't use a saved audience, we can come in here and we can define our audience in this section. So the most important thing for most of us is going to be setting our location. So by default, it's telling me, hey, do you want to target everyone in the United States? For most of us, when we're selling real estate, the answer to that is probably no, right? I'm only licensed in Arizona. And my listings are only in Arizona, all that fun stuff. So let's change the location. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to hit edit. And I'm going to be able to decide who I want to target to. Now, we talked about kind of those special ad categories that we kind of fall into because we're in housing. We talked about that in the beginning. Well, that does have a limit on how small of an area we can target. It used to be with Facebook, we could target really small sections. We could actually target people by zip codes. Facebook determined that was kind of a gray area when it comes to the fair housing laws. So they've actually restricted that. And so it says, you can see down here in this little notice, zip code selection is unavailable. Location selection must include all areas within a 15-mile radius. So again, you used to be able to kind of pinpoint even a house or a listing and say, I want to target people in a 1-mile radius or a 5-mile radius. You can't get that specific anymore, but you can still do some really powerful things with Facebook advertising. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here. Again, my ad set, I said, hey, I want to target people in Phoenix. So let's do just that. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to type in Phoenix and a list is going to pop up. I want to make sure I select Phoenix, Arizona. Now, one piece that a lot of people miss in this location section is this drop down up above here. When we picked our location, we also get to decide how drilled down about people in that location do we want to get. Okay, so if we look at this list, we can target people living in or recently in this location, only people who are living in this location, people recently in this location, or people traveling in this location. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. But the bottom line is, when I'm doing real estate ads, I typically target people who are living in this location. Okay, and it's crazy to think that Facebook knows that about us, but it knows, right? It knows if you log onto your Facebook app after you've gone on vacation, right? And you're in a different city, it just knows those things. So do you only want to target people who are just living, or are you okay with targeting people who are recently here but maybe don't live here or are just traveling to that location? You get to make that decision for your business. But for most real estate professionals, I target people who just live in this location, right? I work in Phoenix. I want to work with homeowners or potential homeowners, people who rent here, who are looking to buy. And so I change this to people living in this location, okay? As we start to define these things, I just want to point to the right-hand side of the screen. So again, we talked about this a little bit. Special ad categories, we fall into the housing category. Then there's this section called audience definition. This is kind of Facebook's way of telling you, this is what your audience looks like. This is how specific or how broad your audience is based on what you've set up. Okay. So just know that it's important to monitor this. It's important to look at this. It's not super critical to always be in this kind of green area, right? That's kind of what they're alluding to. Facebook basically tells you that if you're too broad, it can be bad for your ad. And if you're really too specific, it can be bad for your ad as well. Well, I've done tests myself, and being too specific might cost you more money, but it's not always bad for your advertisement. Okay. So just kind of keep that in mind. The more specific we get, if you have a database of 200 people and you only want to target those 200 people, you can do that through Facebook. It's just going to be slightly pricier than if you try and target everyone who lives in the city in Phoenix, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. So as you start to adjust things in your audience, just make sure you're keeping an eye on this audience definition. Make sure you're keeping an eye at this potential reach. And then, keep an eye on this estimated daily results. Again, same thing with this daily results section. Whatever number it tells you here, just kind of take it with a grain of salt. And so what it's telling us here too, and just to quickly explain it, we chose video views as our objective. So it's going to take our objective and take our audience and give us a rough estimate of what they think our results are going to be for our ad. Now, they don't know what our ad looks like. They don't know if it's a good ad or it's a bad ad. So they're just guesstimating, but it's still here, right? And so this estimated daily results will change too. If you're doing lead generation ads, it'll tell you, hey, we think you're going to generate 3 leads a day or 5 leads a day or 200 leads a day, whatever that looks like. So keep it and keep it with a grain of salt, but just keep an eye on it, okay? And if you're getting really specific, okay, and it says, hey, we think your daily results are going to be 0, don't necessarily not run your ad because of that. Again, I've had it where it told me my results are going to be 0, and I had great results with the ad. Okay, so just kind of keep it in mind. Take it with a grain of salt. Okay, so we've talked about location. We picked our location here. That's about as granular as we can get because we're in the housing category, is our city with a 15-mile radius. Okay, so just you're going to have to do with, if you're in real estate, you're going to have to work with that. But again, I've had some great success with it. Let's scroll down. The other things we can target by, again, are limited because we're in this housing category. You used to be able to kind of define age. You can't do that anymore. If I click on these things, nothing happened, right? We also cannot only run ads to only men or only women, again, because we're in that housing category. So just kind of keep that in mind. Detailed targeting expansion, which was a way to kind of get really deep into some detailed targeting, also isn't available because we're in the housing category, but there are some things we can target by, and that's this detailed targeting section. So let's just click edit and see if this makes sense. And if some of these categories or interests or behavior make sense to who you're trying to target, then I would encourage you to test them out, right? And so let's just look to see what they are and see if anything jumps out to us. So again, if you're not in the housing category and you're just running ads because you sell dog food or bracelets, whatever it is, there's going to be a lot more you can do here. Being in the housing space, we're limited here. But I always tell people, click browse and just take a look to see what you can actually target by. So I clicked browse, and these are all of the interests we can target. And so when we click any of these, we're telling Facebook, hey, we only want to target people who live in Phoenix, plus that 15-mile radius, that also fall into one of these other categories. Okay, so let's just look through these. We've got accounting, we've got advertising, people who like apartments, people who are into architecture, people who are into artificial intelligence. So there's a lot of things here, right? Let's just see if we can find one that maybe makes sense for a real estate listing. We've got chemistry, commercial properties, commuting. I'm trying to see if there's something here. Craigslist. I'm not seeing anything off the top of my head, but if any of these were to actually apply to your listing, and let me just try and type something in. I don't know if golf is a good one anymore. It used to be like you could target people who liked golf or who liked boating, and I think they've taken a lot of that away, which is, okay, let's just try something else. Hiking, still nothing. Okay, so just keep in mind, you can browse in here, and some of these interests, when I was looking at this yesterday, there were a few that maybe made sense. Again, if you have a specific listing that kind of falls into, here we go, we got custom home. So if you were selling a custom home, you could target people who have expressed an interest and are like pages related to custom homes. So if you had a really custom home that you were trying to sell, maybe you did a Facebook ad and you tried to target people who liked custom homes. Okay, so just one example there. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else. Fixer-uppers. Okay, so here's another one. Maybe you have a real fixer-upper house. You can target people who potentially want a fixer-upper, who like the idea of fixer-uppers, right? It's kind of generic, it's kind of vague, but there's some options there. The other thing, first-time home buyer grant. Again, if you want to work with first home buyers, that might be a good option for you too as well. Again, it's a little scary to know what Facebook knows about us, but it's the world we live in today. Okay, so for this example, I'm not going to click any of that. I personally like to keep it to a location, and I'm going to kind of let my ad speak for itself. The other section down here, more options. One thing you can do is you can target people based on how they're connected to your page. So if we come in here, and again, this was in like the more options section of this detailed targeting, and we can click connections. I just want to kind of showcase this. You can target people who like your page, target people who are friends of people who like your page, target people or exclude people who like your page. So sometimes I'll actually do this, exclude people who like your page. If you're really trying to generate new leads or get new people to look at your brand, you might want to exclude people who like your stuff. The other way, right? Some people tell me they only target people who like their page. Something to keep in mind there, okay? But for most of my ads, I just leave this at none, okay? Alrighty. Let's keep going here. We've got a few more sections here. We're coming up here at the top of the hour. So I think when we get into the ad section, we're going to have to be really quick about the ad, but that will also have to be another part. But because I think I wanted to spend a good chunk of time kind of on this targeting stuff, because I think it's what's most confusing for people when they do Facebook ads. Okay. So this next section, placements. Where is your ad going to be placed when it's running, right? Facebook, again, owns Instagram. And as if you've been on either one of those platforms, there's a lot of different places that ads can be shown. They can be shown in the news feed, on the right-hand column, tons of different areas. So most of the time, people just hit automatic placements and let it run. If you're brand new and you don't want to fuss about it too much, go ahead and do that, right? It doesn't hurt, though, to come in here and at least look at what the placements are. Okay, so if we click manual placements, we actually can see and uncheck if we don't want our ad to appear in certain spots. So just an example, right? Platforms. Do we want our ad to show on Facebook, on Instagram? I would most likely keep those checked. Do you want it to show on the Audience Network or even Facebook Messenger? Again, you get to kind of decide that. And then you can come in here and you can get really specific, right? So it says placements, feeds. Do we only want our ad to show on Facebook or Instagram? We can uncheck these. Maybe we don't want it to show on Marketplace, and we don't want it to show, is it going to let me uncheck that? There we go. I can uncheck that if I choose to. Maybe for whatever reason, we don't have a great Instagram presence, and so we don't want it to appear on the Instagram feed. We could go and we could uncheck those, right? We can also come in here and uncheck something like Instagram or Instagram and Messenger if we wanted to. Now, this is giving me a little bit of a slow warning here. So hopefully you guys can see this okay. So decide what this looks like. I've run a lot of ads where I've done automatic placements. And I've also run ads where I said, hey, I only want this to appear on Facebook, and I only want it to appear on the Facebook newsfeed. Sometimes, in my opinion, like the right column ads, we've all seen them. I never personally click on those. So I don't know if I necessarily want to pay to have my ad run there if I would never click on something over there, if that makes sense. That being said, I'm the kind of guy where if you show me a good Instagram ad, there's a good chance I'm clicking it, right? So, you can kind of pick and choose here. I might unselect Audience Network and Messenger and just say, hey, I just want this to run on Facebook and Instagram, okay? So just know that you can select those. If this is your very first ad, maybe just do automatic placements and let it run and see how it does. Sometimes we overthink things, and I'll be the first to admit this. I'll overthink it. And, whereas if I just let it run, it might have generated some good results for me, okay? Okay, so let's scroll down. We've got the section about placements. The last part here in the kind of setting up of the ad set, and then we're going to have a few minutes, and I'm just going to quickly kind of talk through an ad, and we'll have to do it in a different session as well, because we are running out of time here. The last part in here is optimization and delivery. It says, what is your optimization for ad delivery? And if we can click this, I don't think there's going to be too many options here for our video, but there is. Okay, so there's two options because we selected video views as our objective, we get to decide how is Facebook going to optimize our ad and what are they going to charge us for, okay? And so if you select a different objective, there's going to be different things here. So like if you selected the traffic objective, you're going to say, hey, I want to either pay for impressions or clicks. If you do a lead generation ad, you're going to say, hey, I want to optimize for more leads. And so if we look at this, we have two options here because we're doing that video view ad. We can say, hey, we'll deliver your ads to help you get the most completed video views if the video is 15 seconds or shorter. Or do you want them to optimize to get the most 2-second consecutive video views? So it says, we'll deliver your ads to get the most views of continuous seconds or more. So do you want longer views or do you just want more eyeballs is kind of the way I interpret that. And so in this case, I'm probably going to keep it at through play, but I would also maybe run a test and see, okay, do I get more views or better views if I just get more eyeballs on it? And so I might test out another ad set that does that. So I'm going to click view through play, okay? The last part in here is cost control. It says Facebook will aim to spend your entire budget and get the most through plays using the lowest cost bid strategy. If you want to set a cost control, enter an amount. And let me just check here. So we do have a couple different kind of caps is what they call it. Again, this is more of a 202, 303 thing. At the end of the day, especially with something like video views, we're probably good. You're probably okay with not putting a cost control in there. For me, the way I use this is I usually run a test. So I'll run $5 a day and I'll let it run for a week or 2 weeks or whatever it looks like. And I take a look at it. Hey, how much are the views costing me? How much are my leads costing me? And if it's more than I want to spend, then I'll come in here and I'll put a dollar amount on it, right? So with video views, I actually don't know what a good cost control would be for a video view. Maybe 25 cents per video view or whatever that looks like. And so the one thing you can do is you can always put a number in here. And if your ad is not getting any traction, because that happens sometimes, you run the ad, you hit publish, and if it's getting 0 traction, then you might need to up your budget and or increase how much you're actually spending in this cost control, okay? And again, when we go through a full lead generation ad, this will make a little bit more sense, right? Because we can put a dollar amount, hey, I want to generate leads for $10. And if I'm doing a lead generation ad, I might come in here and say, hey, I want to generate a lead for $10. So I put $10 in there, trying to tell Facebook, hey, this is my cap that I want to spend per lead, okay? But for video views, let's just go ahead and leave this blank, okay? We are running out of time here at the top of the hour. So that's the basics of setting up an ad set. Let's quickly just jump over to creating an ad, okay? And again, I did select video views, so my ad creation is going to be pretty simple. But if you get into lead generation ads and some other things, this can be a little bit more robust. So again, we're going to have to do a class dedicated to specifically that, right? But here's the ad section, okay? So again, we're going to name our ad. So I might say, if I've got a specific video I'm trying to promote here, I might say 1234 Main Street video. I might just name the video, okay? What video am I trying to promote? What ad am I trying to run? Let's just give it a name. And then as soon as we type it in here, it should appear here on the left-hand side. Now, the next section here, and this is what we talked about in the very beginning, you do have to have a Facebook business page to run a Facebook ad. And so you get to select that Facebook business page here. If you have multiple Facebook business pages, you can actually select this. So this is my real estate team, Core Consultants. I will leave that selected, but you can come in here and you can select a different page if you choose to. Now, the other reason why this is important is when you select a page, you will actually be able to run ads to posts that are already been posted to that page if that interests you. So I'll show that here in a second. The other thing you're going to do is you're going to select an Instagram account. And we can, again, there's a lot of YouTube videos on that. How do you connect your Instagram account to your Facebook business page? If you want to run ads on Instagram, that Instagram account has to be connected to that business page. So I would encourage you to do a quick Google search on that because you want that to be able to pop up here as well. So that is my team Instagram account, AZ Core Consultants. Okay, so I've selected both of those. The last step in here, and again, we're not going to have time because we're down to 5 minutes to create an ad from scratch. But this is where you would do that, right? You would come in here and you would add the video. You would upload the video. You can actually use this to create a slideshow or create a video. And you would add some text. What I tend to do, especially if this is your first ad, is you can select this dropdown and use an existing post. Okay, so one of the easiest things to do is just post something to Facebook that you want your ad to be, right? So again, if you've got a listing tour on video, post that video to your Facebook business page. Then you can come in here and hit use existing post, and you can click select post and actually select one of these. So this is a post I did about active listings in Scottsdale. I could just go ahead and select this and hit continue. And it is now going to use this video that I already posted to my Facebook business page as my ad. It's the easiest way to do it when you're just starting out and you're brand new. So again, we'll go in more in depth as we do part 2 and part 3 of actually diving into the specific ad creation piece of it. Because again, we could probably spend a whole hour on that itself. But an easy trick is just post something to Facebook, a video, whatever that is, and use that as your ad. So you can actually see here now that I've selected that post, it appears on the right-hand side. And it says 922 active listings in Scottsdale. This is up from 855 last month. More inventory is helpful for buyers who are having a tough time finding something, right? So when we did those placements earlier, you can actually click through and see what does that ad look like in these different placements, right? So now that we've selected our video, what does it look like in the Facebook news feed? What does it look like in the Facebook story? What does it look like in the different, again, placements that we selected in that placement selection step, okay? So I always tell people, pick something, preview it. Again, if you're only running it for a couple days, a couple dollars a day, it doesn't have to be perfect. I think this is a lot like kind of creating or doing an email blast. Sometimes we strive for perfection and we don't end up getting something out. If you need help, one resource if you're creating an ad from scratch or a graphic from scratch is canva.com, canva.com. And I'll try and put this in the text chat here as well. Canva.com. There we go. A lot of great and easy, Facebook, YouTube graphics that you can create on canva.com. I just dropped that in the YouTube kind of chat there. So check that out if you want to kind of create your own ad from scratch. Again, we'll talk about that more in future sessions here. Okay. So that was the basics. We talked about creating a campaign, choosing an objective, creating an ad set, getting that targeting dialed in, and then we talked about the very, very basics of selecting our ad. And once we're done here, we're just going to come here to the bottom right, and we're going to hit publish, okay? We're going to hit publish, and this might take a second, but it'll upload these to the Facebook servers, and then your ad will essentially go live if you clicked, hey, go live today, or go live later this afternoon. Now, even if you said, hey, go live immediately, just know that there are some Facebook checks and balances in place. So your ad won't actually be live immediately. It might take a couple hours. In some cases, maybe 6-7 hours, I think is the most I've ever spent kind of waiting for my ad to go live. So if you're like me, you hit go live on this thing, you want to check it every hour to see how it's doing. But most likely if you hit okay, it's going to be 6-ish hours until that thing actually goes live. Okay. But now you've actually gone and created your first Facebook ad. And when we go back to the ads manager, just like we talked about, business.facebook.com, if we click ads manager on the left-hand side, our new campaign will now show up here in a second. Here we go. Getting more video views for my listing, targeting Arizona residents. And this is where we can check the results, how many impressions it's gotten, its reach, and all of that fun stuff. And so again, we'll talk about that more in future sessions, but this was aimed to be kind of the very basics to get you started for creating your first campaign. Guys, I hope this was helpful. If it was, please hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I'll schedule part 2 and part 3 if we need it for this session. And if there's any questions, please leave a comment in the comment section, and I'll catch you guys later.